Business Podcast. My name is Alexei. I'm your host. And today I've got a special guest with us. His name is Andrew Carter. Hey, Andrew.
Hello, Alexei. Thanks for having us on.
Excellent. All right, Andrew. So you run Global Publishing Group, and Global Publishing Group is a publishing agency. Is that right?
It is, but it's an agency with a difference. We're entrepreneurial publishers, which is a type of publication most people don't know about, and it's very good for business people, very good for any business owner trying to get noticed.
Okay, so books in 2023, what's that all about? I mean, would you recommend people get into books these days? I mean, what's your angle on the whole thing?
Yep, so everyone wants to go online, but online's saturated. Everyone can do an ebook, but the fact remains that since 2011, for the last 11, 12 years, year on year, physical book sales have increased. Now, obviously that spiked during COVID when there was lockdowns and everything else, but even now in 2022, 2023, book sales remain higher now than any time pre-COVID. So there's a higher demand for physical books than there's ever been. More are being produced and far more are being read. And in fact, if you looked at the statistics, 88% of all of that type of media, all of it is in physical books. 88% is physical books, and it's about 12% that is ebooks and audio books.
That's pretty staggering in terms of stats. But books aside, how did you get into all this, mate? Tell us more about yourself. I mean, you seem like a very knowledgeable person in terms of the books, but I think you've got a bit of a background that people need to know about. I mean, what did you do for a living before you've tapped into the whole Global Publishing Group game?
Yeah, good point. So my interest, the focus had always been in aviation. So after I left school, I went on to do all the different facets in flying, charter pilot, instructing, worked my way through to airline pilot, worked as an airline captain. I've flown for 4 different airlines internationally and nationally, and had a great run with that. But of course, airlines being what they are, Ansett, Air Nauru, those sort of airlines have all fallen over at one stage or another, and I tended to get caught up in those. So it hasn't been a consistent sort of line of work, put it that way. And I suppose I got to the stage too, the last time I was doing it, just the challenge wasn't there. I'd always been looking for something different, and I've always had that entrepreneurial streak, which I think a lot of us do. And so I ended up finding my way into business and started my own business, built that up very, very quickly. This is going back to 2005, so I knew a lot of the same people you did back then. And through learning all about marketing in particular, I was able to grow a business very, very quickly from scratch. And within 17 months, I doubled the turnover and then doubled it again. The whole plan was to sell out within 3 years, which I did, and then went on to teach people those techniques. Everyone wanted to know, how was I successful? Well, the best way to reach the biggest number of people was through a book. And so that's how I came into writing a physical book, finding out the success of that and helping others do the same thing.
Yeah, I do come across quite a lot of business owners that sort of get a little bit stuck as to where they are in business. So are you sort of suggesting that book could be a solution to something like that?
Not suggesting, stating it outright. Absolutely,
okay.
Positively. The two biggest things facing business owners, the two biggest problems I see, one, getting noticed. It's harder now to get noticed than ever before, both offline and online, because online has just become saturated, right? And then when you do get noticed, the next biggest barrier to creating a sale is trust. So a book is what does that for you. A book is what gets you instantly noticed, and it builds that trust, because if someone's reading your book, they're effectively spending 2, sometimes 3 hours immersed in your words, your thoughts. They actually hear your voice, right? Your sense of humor and your beliefs come through, and that's what they connect with. That's what builds the trust, and that makes it easier for you then to deal with those people. You attract your tribe, and you've got that instant connection with them.
And I guess, by having a book, you obviously would attract a fair bit of publicity, I would imagine, as well. So in marketing sense, you are positioning yourself as an expert in creating more awareness. And this way, you are basically becoming the preferred provider in whatever you do. I think a good example would be Jim. He's obviously, Jim's mowing and all that sort of stuff. He's written a book, and I think that's actually helped him sell a lot of franchise. So
correct.
Is that the model that you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. Janine Ellis from Boost Juiced, exactly the same thing. Write a book, sell more franchises. We've got chiropractors who've done the same thing with, physiotherapists, Back in Motion. He was able to do that, be able to sell a lot more franchises. Look, it works particularly well for franchise type people. It works particularly well for coaching type people. It works well for anyone simply because, as you said, even online influencers, this is the bit people don't understand. You need to attract people's attention, and you can do that offline and then use the book as a marketing tool to drive them to your online site, like an online influencer, and have a much higher conversion rate because you have built that notoriety, that go-to authority status that comes from being an author. Because people have always looked at authors as the go-to experts or authority. Why else would you get published unless you were the expert?
Yeah, I guess. Well, look, from my perspective, there are books that sell and there are books that nobody buys as well. So, how would a business owner be able to put together the content for a book in order for that to work and not fail? I mean, I would imagine that it is quite a process to write a book. So, what would be some of the tips that you can give to a business owner who's potentially considering to engage you or maybe do a self-publishing type of book?
Yep. So there's limitations with self-publishing and traditional publishing. We can talk about that later. But the simple fact of the matter remains, if you want, Global Publishing Group has the highest number of best-selling authors as a percentage of authors published by any organisation. So we have a technique, a system we use to do that. Now, writing a book scares a lot of people, especially business owners. We're all pretty time poor, and I don't have the years or even 6 months to go lock myself away in a cabin and write out the memoirs. It's not like that at all. We actually teach people how to create the content for a book in under half a day, and it can be done by people who can't even write or type. So the technology now is available such that we can show a structure that people can lay things out, and then just using something as simple as otter.ai or one of these services, they can actually speak their book and we'll have it transcribed for them in real time, and it just needs to be tidied up. Yes, there's a full system and process behind the cover design. There's a lot of marketing we put into, especially the rear of the book, to work as a sales page for your book. And yes, the media and PR, we then have a way of developing a lot of that for our authors. And that's what ends up promoting their business. The amount of free media and PR you can get just from having a book is literally in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in many cases, it's media you couldn't get otherwise, because the media is approaching you because you are an author. They see you as the expert on that topic, and they're happy to talk to you about it. If you weren't the author, they wouldn't approach you, and you couldn't get through to them.
Sounds like quite a process that you follow. So, knowing you obviously run the 3-day events to teach people all this stuff, and the event's only a couple of $100 and it runs across the 3 days. It sounds still like quite a lot for a person to sort of cram in. What would be a better way for them to get to know you and the process before they attend the 3-day event? Are you doing anything to promote this? Because looking from a perspective of a business owner who hears about Global Publishing Group, that doesn't necessarily strike you about writing a book that has a structure and a bit of a purpose behind it. You really start to think about it different once you develop a subject, and obviously you've got a very different way to do things. So what would be I'm not trying to mock your 3-day events. I think they're great. It's just that a lot of time people won't find the time, or they won't travel very far because it's a face-to-face event. How are you sort of educating people on those events? And is there something that you're doing to help them sort of understand the process a little bit better?
Yeah, all good questions. So first and foremost, I do run a webinar. We try and keep that under an hour. It's 45 minutes of just all content. There's no advertising. There's no fluff. I get through it, but it'll show people step by step how quickly and easily they can create a book. It'll show them how that positions them in their overcrowded marketplace. So how that they're going to be able to stand out and how to use that. And there's the opportunity to ask questions at the end of that. The reason it's a 3-day event is because at that 3-day event, we cover literally everything that they need to know about the publishing industry, about creating a book, about being able to make it sell, about how to become a best-selling author, how to get the media and PR. That's all covered in real time. And it's a workshop. We do work one-on-one and in groups with people. So we keep it to a limited number, and we can create the entire structure. We give them a workbook, and at the end of it, they've walked out with a title that's been tested and we know will work, the full back cover design, and the layout, the content is already given to them or structured in such a way that they can easily go home and use it in the methods that we've just described.
Well, that sounds amazing. So where would people find about these upcoming webinars? Is that on your website?
It's on the website, globalpublishinggroup.com.au, and we'll run those regularly. The events are only a couple of times a year, so you don't want to miss them. We normally have people travel from all around the world and obviously interstate to these sort of events. That hasn't happened over the COVID time, so that's building back up now. We're finding people are reluctant to travel and they all want to do it online, but it can't be. This needs to be workshopped. If you want the greatest success in the shortest possible time, you need to be there and work through the process.
Great. Well, look, I personally am a big fan of personal development books. I listen to quite a lot on Audible. I actually buy physical books as well, just to sort of reference certain points. And it's interesting when you listen to books and when you buy them as well, just the feel of holding a book in your hand. So it does create a lot of credibility. I've personally become, a big fan of people like Brian Tracy,
Sure.
Benjamin Harvey. Who Not How has been a book that's really helped me sort of transform things. And I find that this is really the concept that a lot of people really need to refer to. A lot of people try to do things themselves. And look, I think there's a lot of great self-published books out there, but I really do think that they could be a lot better and probably reach a lot of people using your system. Is that about right?
Yeah, definitely. And it is about the system, that's right. So technically you're looking at it from a different perspective. It's not just writing a book for the sake of writing a book. This is a marketing tool that is designed and developed a certain way that is going to drive the ideal client to you. So it's going to get you a lot more attention, but you're now going to start attracting prospects, not rejects. Too many businesses spend too much of their time dealing with people that are just not right for their business. A book cuts a lot of that out. And yeah, we're talking about non-fiction how-to type books because they outsell fiction books by about 2.2 to 1. So the demand is there for non-fiction books. And the argument can be made, well, can't you find all the answers online now? No. What Google has done is it's created a whole lot of armchair experts, but people are hungry for specific information, for actual information. And you look, I think it's something like 60% of all searches into YouTube now start with how to. So if you're writing a how-to book, that's exactly what people are looking for. Alexei, you and I are old enough to remember a time before the internet. How did people find information back then?
Well, libraries,
in a book. Yeah, libraries, right? And guess what? People are doing it now, and people are doing it in increasing numbers. So, as I say, far more books are being sold now. People are searching for that actual information, not from the armchair expert, from the go-to expert or authority.
Well, I think it's definitely a subject that a lot of people should consider, especially if you're in business and you're looking to do things. I mean, are you finding some patterns within the types of customers, the types of people that come to your seminars? Are they business owners who are stuck? Have they got a particular problem that they're looking to resolve? I mean, I'm just sort of trying to understand how this may help our listeners in the sense that, hey, I'm sitting and listening to this. Alexei's talking about marketing through a book, interviewing Andrew. That sounds all good and well, but what sort of problems will that help me solve, especially from a startup? I'm not looking for a lot of exposure because I haven't really figured out what I'm doing. Like, is there something else that I'm missing that your service or product may solve?
Not necessarily, but I think you've brought up some good points there. So first and foremost, the biggest problem we find, business owners are probably the people who benefit from this the most, but it's hard to get business owners who understand that they need a book. And if you say that to them, all this fear comes up because where am I going to get time to write a book? And I don't want to become famous for a book. Okay, Sharon Jurd's a classic example, right? So there's lots of life coaches out there. There's lots of business coaches out there. How do you differentiate from being one of those coaches? Well, Sharon Jurd wrote the book first, and then because of the notoriety that gave, she was able to create the success that she's now created. Conrad Bobolak, how many real estate agents are out there? But Conrad Bobolak turned up to the course. He'd never heard the term the game behind the game, which is what we promote, because you're not looking at making money just from the sale of the book. In fact, that's a very poor way to make money. You're looking at the money that book generates for you. So back-end sales and getting more traffic to your website or to your business. Conrad went from working at the NAB, at the National Australia Bank, to, after understanding what we were talking about with the game behind the game at the 3-day workshop, he then structured his entire book around that. He's created an entire business that now pays him $1 million a year.
Wow.
Yeah, only because of what that book generates from him. And so on top of that, we will show the model behind it. So from the book, you can have a YouTube channel, and that will help also attract the right prospect and delete the rejects. And, from that and his website design, he's now got the right client to work with. Any industry you can think of, we've covered it. In fact, a lot of hobbies too. A lot of people that want to turn their hobby into a business. Well, any hobby you can think of, someone's already monetized it in some way, shape, or form. How do you stand out from them? Well, most likely they don't have a book on the subject. Once you do, that's how you stand out.
Great. Well, I'm working on a book myself, and this is something that my listeners will hear about in the upcoming episodes. I guess if somebody wanted to approach you and talk a little bit more about this, so globalpublishinggroup.com.au, is that the best place for them to go and find some information, contact you directly?
Yeah, through Global Publishing Group or through my own website, andrewcarterevents.com. Either or is the best way to go. Yeah.
Sounds good. Excellent. Well, Andrew, I think we've covered a lot of different things and hopefully given our listeners some ideas as to what else they could do to elevate their business or potentially change things around for the better. Mate, thanks very much for finding the time to do this podcast. It's the first time we are doing it through video. So guys, now we're going to be on YouTube as well. So if you've been asking for the visuals and listen to podcasts on YouTube, here we go. We are listening to you. And look, guys, I am trying to do my best to come up with topics that are of interest, potentially bringing in interesting guests to interview as well. So if you've got any suggestions, please let me know. If you enjoy my podcast, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channels, whether you're on Spotify or anything else. And if you basically want to follow Andrew, you know where to find him. Andrew, thanks very much, mate. And we'll chat soon.